Hi, I'm Ralph Preston. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, we have these Stroke Buddies, Stroke Survivor Support Group meetings where we try and bring practical information and science, real valuable stuff for stroke recovery to stroke survivors. And today we're lucky to have Becky Alter from Neofect. She's a clinical manager there. We're going to talk to her a little bit about her journey to becoming an OT, and she's going to talk about two of Neofect's products today that are very interesting. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Polly Hutchinson for her efforts on all of our behalf to since she had a relationship with Neofect, she volunteered to coordinate putting uh, us in touch with Becky excuse me, setting up this meeting. So thank you, Polly. And Becky, I thought I'd start out just by asking you a little bit about. I'm always interested in. A lot of us are empathetic, and we help other people, and I find that's typically true of medical professionals, doctors, OTs, VTs. So tell us a little bit about how you got interested in becoming an OT and a bit about your journey to where you are today with Neofect.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me here. So I think what really got me started as an OT was my parents. Both of my parents are in the medical field, and I think they both saw from a young age that I do really enjoy helping people. So they kind of helped guide me in my decision making of what I did. I originally went to school to become a child life specialist, which I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that. But basically, what a child life specialist does is we work in the medical setting, helping children go through what they're going through, as well as their families. So, for an example, as I did my internship at Shriners, which is a pediatric burn hospital. So when the kids would come in, we would help prepare them for anything they were going to go through. If they were going to have surgery, we would use play and make it fun to kind of explain what they were going through, as well as their peers. Like I know I went into classrooms to explain to the other kids why the child might look a little different now that he has a burn and coming back to school, as well as helping the parents too. So we kind of just helped more psychologically help the kids go through what they're going through, as well as their families. And when I was there, another big part is we would go into therapy with them because, especially after a burn, and as you probably know, sometimes therapy can be painful, even though it's important, it can be hard to go through in the beginning. So, as a child life specialist, we would go in with them to their therapy appointments and kind of help them make it more fun and help them get through it. And so I went a lot with these children to their OT and PT appointments with them. And that's kind of what made me change my course is I saw how much the occupational therapist was able to help these children. And I really saw what OT was able to do. And once I graduated undergrad as a child life specialist, I went right back to school to become an OT. And originally I thought I wanted to work with children. But then I did my level 2 field work actually in North Carolina on a spinal cord injury unit with adults. And I fell in love with the neuro aspect of OT. And that kind of guided me. And I decided to work with adults with the neuro population. And from there, I started my first job was at Spalding Rehab in Boston. I worked more on an orthopedic trauma unit. So there I worked with burns, amputees, prosthetic training, kind of a broad umbrella of different diagnoses we saw there. And then after that, I moved to New Jersey and I worked at Kessler, which is also an inpatient rehab hospital. And there I worked with spinal cord injuries. And I did that for about 2 years. And then I decided I wanted to travel and see the world. So I became a traveling therapist where I kind of moved all over and worked with all different populations. I did work a lot with strokes, kind of all different populations. I did that for about 4 years. And then I decided to pivot my career and I decided to work with Neofect, which has been an amazing opportunity so far. And I've met lots of great people, including Polly, who I worked with. And I've been loving it. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today.
Great. Well, those are Spalding and Kessler are two pretty well-known and well thought of institutions. I'm sure you got some great experience at both of them. We,
I
of
did. I
course,
was very
believe that.
lucky to work in both of those places, and I worked alongside some great therapists. I was able to really learn a lot while I was there.
We all believe in neuroplasticity and the neuro approach. It's part of the science behind recovery, right, Dr. Hetzler?
Exactly.
Anyway, he presented on neuroplasticity and spasticity and language in the brain and different types of strokes and sleep and stroke. Hey, I got all five of them
Oh.
today.
Very good.
Could only remember four last time I went to rattle off that list. Anyway, so Neofect makes a whole line of interesting products. You were going to talk a little bit about, I guess, the smart glove and the smart board. So I'll let I'll let you do that since I only know what I can read off the website about them, not having had personal experience with them. Polly actually demonstrated. I don't think Stormy's here today, but Polly actually was kind enough to demonstrate both your products one-on-one with one of the stroke survivors I coach. So I have a little bit more knowledge, but you're the expert, so we'll listen to you. Nope, won't let me change view either.
Can I ask a question real quick while we're trying to get technical
Sure.
difficulties out? Like depending on the side of weakness that you have, like I see some of the products on the website, and so I was just wondering, like, what's the, I guess you would say, like, what's the effectiveness? Like, because I had my stroke in like 2019, but I was looking at like, because my hand on the right side, I have right side weakness, and so certain things like I was looking at the grip thing, the nano grip or nano something,
The Neomano.
and so so I was looking at that, and I'm like, I see it, but like, how does that help you as far as like rehabilitation and like exercises and things like that?
Yeah, so I can answer that question. So we have a few different products. Our smart glove and smart board, or they are products that will help improve your range of motion and your strength. And it's more of a rehab product, where the Neo Mono is more of an adaptive device. It's not going to be a rehab device. The Neo Mono is really, we really focus it more for somebody who has, let's say, like a spinal cord injury or Parkinson's, who is not going to get back that motion. But they want to still be functional and they want to still be able to use that hand. So you want to think of it more as kind of a robotic hand, that it's going to open and close the hand for them. Because if they want to be able to hold on to a drink and open it up, and this hand's paralyzed, the Neomano will now hold the drink in place for them. It will cause their hands to be able to close so that they can use their strong hand to open up the bottle of water. So it's really more of an adaptive device rather than a rehab technique device type of thing. So it's more of, I would say the Neomano was more focused on somebody who just wants to be able to perform a task, but you're not really trying to help that hand regain strength or motion. Does that make sense?
Thank you. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I would say somebody who has the ability to gain back that strength and range of motion, the Neo Mono is not a great fit. It's more for somebody who wants to be able to be able to adapt themselves into their everyday lives without having to regain that strength or motion.
There's your perfect segue into the smart glove.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to kind of, I know I can't show you guys my screens, but I'm going to kind of read off my screen a little bit so that I can go through and make sure I hit everything. Let's see. So a little introduction and overview of what I'm going to do today is we're going to talk about the smart board and the smart glove. We're going to talk about the target audience for it, the evaluation components, the scenarios and applications, and how the smart glove and smart board home programs work. So with the smart glove and smart board, we have two separate programs. We have one that we can use in a hospital setting with the clinicians, and then there's one that people can use at home, kind of as a home exercise program, either alongside your therapy that you're going to, or if you're already done doing therapy and you're no longer going to a therapist, it can also work really well to keep you on track of doing exercises every day. Let's see. So since I don't have the screen, I'm gonna show you. This is what our smart glove looks like. I don't know if everybody can see that, but it's very lightweight. It shouldn't hurt at all. You shouldn't even really feel it on your hand that much when you're wearing it, but this is what it would look like. So the smart glove, it does not assist with motion at all. So in order to be a good candidate for a smart glove, you do have to have at least some motion in your hands for it to work. It can be a very small amount of motion, but you do need to have some. So even if it's just the tiniest bit, then you're a good candidate. But if we don't have any motion yet, it's not going to work because it's not a robotic device. So it does not move your hand at all for you. The smart board is the same thing where it's a board and the board works on your shoulder and your elbow. So if somebody's trying to improve the range of motion and the strength in their board, with their elbow or their shoulder, you would want to start with the smart board. And again, with the smart board, you need to have a little bit of motion. It doesn't need to be a lot, but you do need to have some in order for it to work. Because again, none of these products are robotic. The Neomano, like you were talking about, is robotic, but none of our therapeutic devices like these are robotic. It's all using neuroplasticity and your own movement to retrain the brain. And by the way, if anybody has any questions while I'm talking, just please feel free to interrupt me and I can answer any along the way.
I have a question.
Sure.
You showed us the smart glove. You have a smart board there that you can show us.
Polly's showing it, I believe.
I think Polly's showing it because, to be honest, I have pictures of it, but I don't have it set up. I was going to show you on the presentation, so I'm sorry. I don't have it set up, but it looks like Polly does. Yeah, they're pretty big.
My chair is in the way, but it's like a whiteboard that sits flat on the desk and there's a little cradle for your arm. And so you just move your arm around on it to play the games.
Yes. Okay, and all of these devices use virtual reality. So it's kind of like, I don't know if any of you guys have played the Wii or have seen the Wii, where we're using virtual reality, where your hand or your arm and elbow will control the games. So the way that it works is we have, I think it's about, let me see, there's 45 smart glove games and 34 smart glove board games. So there's a bunch of different games. They're all virtual reality games, and you will be using your hand and fingers and wrist with the smart glove to control the games. And with the smart board, you're using your shoulder and your elbow to control the game.
Do you need a prescription with the smart glove, or is that like a product that's offered on the website? Because I don't see it.
So you don't need a prescription. As of right now, insurance does not cover the smart glove and smart board. If you are a veteran, the VA does fully cover it. But right now it's not covered by insurance. That's something that we are working on. And we do have different payment plans that you can do. But right now it is not currently covered. So you don't need a prescription for it.
Yeah, they also have a monthly rental plan.
Yes.
What are you covering?
What was that?
What are you covering?
What do you mean by what are we covering? Sorry.
What are you covering? For the prescription for that.
Oh, so it's not covered right now. So you do.
I know, but what are you covering for the installment plan?
So
I think she means how do you pay for it?
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, yes. So how you pay for it would be out of your own pocket. So it does come out of your own pocket. The VA does fully cover it, but if not, you would have to pay on your own. We do have different plans where if you need to break it up and pay monthly, you can do that as well.
Yeah, but what are you going to pay for it now?
Oh, so what do you get when you get it?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're getting the smart glove, you would get the glove itself, and it comes with a tablet which has the games all on it. So it comes with a tablet. It's a 10-inch tablet that you would get. And that's what it hooks up to when you play the games on the tablet.
All right, but what are you going to get for that? What are you going to get for that?
Charge?
You mean what's the charge?
Yes. What's the
Okay.
charge?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I can tell you how much everything is. So
Thank you.
right
Thank you
now,
so
that's
much.
okay. Right now, the smart
Wow.
glove is $1,925 and the smart board is $3,845.
What, do you know what software runs? What kind of software it runs on?
It's an
So it's
Android
Android
tablet.
based. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Polly. Mhm.
Android, okay.
Yeah, but we will send you the tablet. That's part of the plan. You don't have to have it. We do send you the tablet.
Do you get a discount if you know Ralph?
That would be nice, huh?
They give you an increase.
No, probably not.
You could charge more if you know Ralph?
Probably.
We won't charge more, but yeah. So basically what it is you're using the glove to do what the exercises you would normally be doing with your therapist. Virtual reality solutions like the smart glove reinforce voluntary repetition and task-oriented practice, both of which are key ingredients in motor recovery. So normally when you guys go to an OT session or a PT session, they probably will tell you, okay, let's open and close your hand 10 times, right? You do these rote exercises where you're able to work on them by opening and closing your hands. You might be working on pinching. You might be doing wrist flexion and extension, where the OT would kind of sit there and say, okay, we're gonna do this one 10 times and this one 10 times, right? So what the smart glove and the smart board are essentially doing, we're essentially working on those same exercises, but we're making it more fun. And because you're really engaged in these games, it's also allowing you to do more repetitions. So our research, we have done a lot of research. Most of our research has been done with Stanford University out in California, but we've done a lot of research outside of that too. But one of our research studies showed that in a traditional OT session, you get about 32 repetitions completed on average when you focus on upper extremity recovery. But when you compare that to how many reps you're getting with the smart glove, you normally get between 200 and 300 repetitions completed during one session. On one of our sessions, what we always recommend is doing one session at least 5 times a day, or sorry, one session at least 5 times a week. And each session is about a half an hour. So one session is 8 games. So it's showing that every session you're getting between 200 and 300 reps. So 300 of going up and down, side to side, moving your hands. And that's going to really increase the neuroplasticity. Is everybody familiar with neuroplasticity? Okay, just want to make sure. So basically what that's saying is the more that you do it, you're going to repave those pathways in the brain. So the more repetitions that you get, the better. So if we're getting between 200 and 300 reps in a half an hour, that's amazing. And you'll really start to see improvements after doing that every day.
Two
So that's
things
what our,
two things real quick.
yep.
One is if you're not doing you can do it at home. That's a real important thing, because a lot of us believe that your time with a therapist is like your time with a piano teacher. It doesn't really count towards practicing or therapy. And so if you're not there doing the repetitions during your 45 minutes, then you can get more out of your OT by interacting, getting homework, talking about what you're doing with the smart glove at home and that kind of thing, rather than just sitting there doing the repetitions someplace else when you can do them at home. One other thing I noticed when I shot video on 2 studies for the Medical University of South Carolina Stroke Recovery Research Center on using virtual reality. And I noticed 2 things. One, of course, there's the engagement. People tend to get involved in the games. They tend to spend longer than they would because they don't realize how much time they're putting in. But one thing I just noticed was that when people got involved in the games, they started doing things that are much more like the real motions we do in life. They started doing like complex motions to, shoot that duck or whatever the game was. And those kinds of things to me are like yard work. I like yard work for therapy because you end up doing all kinds of, bending over and twisting and complex motions as opposed to like, doing curls. So
Exactly.
those were the 2 things I noticed: engagement and because you forget You know, a lot of therapy to me is like, well, my therapist said on day one, my PT said on day one, Ralph, we're trying to learn how to forget how to walk. And I went, and then it finally made sense. What happens is sometimes when we do things, when we forget and do things naturally, we fall back into patterns that existed pre-stroke that are hard to get to when you overthink things. Does that make sense? Because we're always overthinking because you don't think about what you do before a stroke and after you staring at that hand going, how did I move it? How do I move it? You know?
Right.
So those are my two observations watching people do virtual reality.
Yes. And I will say, kind of going off of what you're talking about, as we designed these games, they worked a lot with us as OTs to kind of come up with games that we focused on what we call activities of daily living. So we tried to have some games in there that focus on the movements that you're going to be doing every day. Like we do have one that is pouring a glass of wine. So we know a lot of people like wine. Even if you don't like wine, it's just pouring a bottle. And sometimes as people get better, I tell them like it's great to make it more functional is by holding a glass in your hand and pretend to be pouring it. Or we have one that you're cutting with a knife, like you're preparing food in the kitchen. So you're doing those motions that you'd be doing on a daily routine. And a lot of times I do the same thing. I say, once you get to the point that this is becoming easy, all right, now let's pick up a fork or a knife and actually do the game while you're holding the item that you'd be using during everyday life. Or there's a bunch of games that are like that, that kind of mimic the activities of daily living. So we really try to focus on the fun aspect of it, but also have it be more functional for your daily life to really get you back to those daily tasks. So as OTs, that's our main focus, is getting you back to those daily routines, whatever your routine may be. But that is very true. I think for me as a therapist, I see that if people are more engaged in the activities that they're doing, you're going to want to keep going. So when we make it into a fun game, instead of just sitting there, okay, 1, 2, 3, but you're actually playing a game and you're focusing on the game, you don't realize how much exercise you're actually getting and how much movement you're getting. And I personally, when I first started, I had a patient, this was out in California, who had a brain injury. I think it was 22 years ago. And she had been doing all sorts of therapy and nothing was really working. And then she started using our glove and she started noticing, oh, she can use that hand now to open and close a door, which she hadn't been able to do in over 20 years. And she was starting to really notice a lot of progress. And that was 20 something years after her injury. So that's another thing is I want to say is never give up, even if you're years after your stroke or whatever had happened, never give up. The more that you do, the more you're going to get back. So it's really important to never give up. Is I have seen people use our product years later and make improvements. And you know, everybody's different, everybody's on different timelines. But I just want to say that keep working and keep working at it because you can keep making improvement. Your brain's amazing like that. It's never too late.
Neuroplasticity lasts a lifetime.
Exactly.
Can I try to share something? I'm going to try to just share using the computer to look at a different screen, and it's kind of fuzzy, but one thing you were talking about is one of my favorite things about this is how it leverages the motion you do have. So I had surgery, and last night I did my smart glove. I got permission from the hand therapist to start using it. And now this is the range of motion for wrist extension and wrist flexion. In the little green bar at the top, you can see I only have about 50 degrees of motion right now, which the normal range of motion is 160 degrees. So I only have about 1/3 of the motion. But when I go into the game, when I go into the game is set. So I only have to move that 50 degrees to be successful at the game. So I don't have to do that full. No, it's not playing the video. I was hoping it would play the video. So it's not. So when I'm doing paint the fence, as Becky was talking about, you know, functional activities, when I paint the fence, the brush goes all the way to the top and down to the bottom, even though I'm only moving 50 degrees, only 1/3 of the full range of motion.
Yes.
Can
Yeah,
you
so
set
that
it
is what I
on,
was going, oops, sorry, what was that?
I was just gonna say, can you set it on 60 or 70 so you have a goal?
Yep, so here, I'll talk about that next. Thank you
Okay,
so much,
sorry.
Polly, for showing me that. The next thing I was actually gonna talk about is how it works. So basically what happens when you first log on, it's going to have you do an evaluation. So the evaluation is really going to have you do every motion that the glove is gonna look at. So I'll have you do wrist flexion extension, the ulnar and radial deviation. It goes through every movement and it records how much movement that you have. This is kind of the same thing as if when you go to your therapist and they measure how much movement you have. So this is a way that we get your baseline. And that's a way that you can always compare and contrast how you're doing. And you can do the evaluation as often as you would like to see if you're making progress. The next thing after the evaluation, before each time you play a game, it's going to ask you to do the movement that you're going to do in the game once or twice. And that's going to set the parameter for the game. So once the game sees how much movement you have, the game is then going to try to get you to do as much movement as you have in order to be successful in the game. And at any point, if you feel like you're asking Ralph if we can make it harder or easier. So if any point during the game that you feel like it's too easy, you can always recalibrate it. There's a button that you can press that it will have you do the motions again, and you can recalibrate it in the middle. There's also a plus and minus button on the side of the screen. So if you want to make it a little bit harder or a little easier, it's just a touch screen that you would press plus or minus, and you can either challenge yourself a little bit more. But usually when it takes your measurements of your full movement, that's going to be a great challenge for you if they do it based on your full movement, because obviously you can't really get more than your full movement. So it's a way that the computer sets the parameters for you. We also have something
And
called,
Ralph, that was a great answer. But you are doing that range of motion before every single game you play.
Oh,
So
okay.
you are measuring it right in that moment. So today, I don't have any more than 50. And of course, as I am exercising my wrist, it's tiring. So it's harder to get to that full range every time.
I'm just a believer in setting really small, achievable goals all the time because you keep making them and success builds on success. So
Right, but since
working it,
you're
I
doing
wanted to see if I
this,
could get to 51 or 52 or whatever.
right, so as you get better, it's going to keep getting harder and harder. So our computer has something called
Perfect.
AI, which is artificial intelligence, and the computer gets to know you. And I'm sure Polly has noticed this, but as you start getting more movement back, the games are going to start getting harder. So the games will start getting longer to increase your tolerance for how many times you can do, how many repetitions you can do. It will also start getting harder, where it will have you have to move your hand at a further degree. So the artificial intelligence really should make it so that you keep having to reach that goal. It should never be easy for you. If you're ever feeling like it's easy, like I said, you could always press a plus button that will make it a little bit harder, or you can recalibrate it so that it should be exactly where it should be for you to be challenging you at the most it can. And like I said, everybody's different. So it's going based off of your actual movement at that time. Like you might have a day, and I'm sure you've all had these days where you wake up, you're really fatigued, your hand is feeling really tight, it's a little bit harder. So it's going to challenge you to the best of your ability at that day.
I figured that was the case. I just asked the question to, bring it up as an issue.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question to bring up. So thank you for bringing that up.
and I did figure out how to do the video on the other computer if you wanted to see any of the videos or any of the photos.
Yeah, if you want to show some, that would be great, so people can kind of get a sense of what I'm trying to explain without showing it. No, it's fine, Ralph. It's computer. Technology is the best and worst blessing.
I know. It's just, I'm in technology. We've done 51 of them with no problems. I mean, we can't share screens today. Go figure,
No,
as they say in
not your
Jersey.
fault. Technology can be crazy like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let me. Oh, that's not bad. I'm trying to get it set up so you can see.
Yeah, there you go. Tilt down.
Okay.
That looks like all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's trying to get to.
It's funny, everybody has a different position.
Yeah.
Becky, you were in a completely different position than you are on my screen.
Yeah, that is funny.
So
Okay.
on this game, you're moving your wrist up and down. And of course, in the picture, you see the wrist is moving all the way up and all the way down. But for me last night, I could only move 50 degrees. So my wrist was only moving a slight amount, but I was able to complete the game. So that's really, it really does emphasize how you can be successful even though you're not able to move as much as someone else.
Yes.
Success is highly motivating too.
Yes.
Right.
And so here's a better view of, you can see my range of motion for wrist flexion and extension is just just a third of a normal range. But I could still successfully do that game because of the way it's leveraged.
Correct. Yeah. And
So here's one of my favorite games.
and you
and
can
this
see our
one
wrist.
is kind of like Frogger, where you have to, move up and down to avoid obstacles. So that's also using elbow. So this one is a little more dynamic because you're having to do some decision making and move rather than a planned, you're moving on the fly.
You also have to react. I'm just sitting here thinking, I wonder what reacting does to recovery, neuroplasticity in the brain. Because often I found some of my reactions were kind of slow in the beginning.
Yes.
And
so that's a big part of this as well.
Good. I mean,
this game on the setting I have, as Becky was talking about, what was it, 32 repetitions in an hour of therapy?
Right. Where you get
This
200 to
game
300 of these.
is 96 repetitions just in 3 minutes. So you can tell it's a lot more intensive and you get a whole lot more repetitions, and plus it's fun. It's something I want to go back and do again and again. So here's another game that I played, and this one is more like an arcade game. It's not one of their traditional therapy games, and it's one that I can actually play against another smart glove user. We can play against each other. We can get together and online and play. And you can see that I did it 3 times for 13 minutes. And you can see that in playing the game, I got a higher level of the range of motion, that my wrist flexion extension, I got a better range because I was playing a game. So I wasn't just focused on moving, I was focused on getting that ball to go where I wanted it to go. And I think
I will say
that's my favorite here. I think we've got a video. That's my favorite game, and it's just the match the 3. It's the pirate game. But so I'm having, and you can see my hand, I'm having to move my hand to aim the cannonball. And, in the video, you can tell my movements are very slight compared to how the cannon is moving. And that's because the game can leverage my movement, which is really great.
yes.
So
Thank you for showing those.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, and so what Polly was just saying, so we do have our regular games that are more the therapeutic ones, and then we do have a bunch that we call our community games that allows you to play against other people within the community. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to find somebody like Polly who has it, and you guys can pick a time that you both go on and you can play against each other. So it's and those are more arcade-like games. The ones that Polly are showing you, those are more of just games, not any that have to do with activities of daily living or anything like that, but they're just fun games to get those movements, and you can play against people. So that's another fun aspect that we do have. And the other thing that we do have too is we have a Facebook group user, and I'm sure Polly's on it, but it's a Facebook page that people can go on and talk about the games or schedule, hey, does anybody want to play this game with me tonight at so-and-so time? And you can meet other people that are using our products as well, and you can go on and play against them.
And people share their progress and stay motivated by participating in the Facebook group.
Yes.
I'll get the link to that from either you, Becky, or you, Polly, because we have some subgroups. People like to do things like play guitar or sew after stroke. So we've got sewing after stroke, guitar after stroke, and oddly enough, gaming after stroke, where people can talk about different controllers that work well with one hand and different games that work with one-handed controllers and which games are good for therapy and stuff. So this would be something that people would be interested in knowing about. I don't know if we have
I'll give you that link.
any smart board users out there you should start like a gaming competition like they have with regular games and crown the Neofect game king or queen.
Yeah,
we do have metrics in the games that will show what you've accomplished over time. We have a group that's been meeting for a couple of years on Friday afternoons to play those arcade games with one another. One of the games is bingo, and everybody in the group can play bingo together. So we have Sophia the bingo queen, and we play, we'll have 6 or 8 people playing bingo together on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, so it just kind of makes it a fun way to get everybody together. And we have had competitions in the past where we'll give a t-shirt or give out things for anybody who wins. I don't know if we've had any recently, but I know that we have done that, and I can find out if we're having any more. But yeah, we have done competitions like that. Ralph, we're on the same page as you.
I was just teasing, but they are good. Yeah. They're good for community building. That's what's going on when they all play bingo.
Right, exactly. So for the smart glove, it's going to be the same glove for everybody. We do have different sizes. It's small, medium, and large. But for the smart board, we do have 3 different handles that somebody can use. So we have different handles based on how much movement you have in your hand. We have a handle that you I can actually get mine. Hang on one second. I can show you the handle. I have it. Okay, so if everybody can see this, we have a handle that you can kind of hold on to, and it supports your arm as well. Or we do have one that kind of just has the arm strap if you don't have movement in your hand to hold on. And then we also have one that's more of just a flat one if you really have a lot of spasticity and they can't get their arm in that arm strap. So it will come with all 3. And based on how you're doing and how much movement you have, you can choose which arm strap is best for you. Because I know a lot of people, right when they first have their stroke, a lot of times people have spasticity or have a hard time grasping onto things. So there's all different options, and it now comes with all 3 if you would order one.
And I bet they're interchangeable.
Yes.
Now I know it's backwards, but here you were talking about, here are the best warriors of the month.
It's actually not backwards, but.
Oh, it's backwards for me.
Yeah. Well, that means it's right for us. No,
there's our, the scores, and it shows people have what they've accomplished during the month. So it does encourage you to be active with the rehab.
Yes. Thank you for showing all these, Polly. I will say another thing that I wanted to go through is just a little bit of our research. So this is just one of our studies that we have, and I'll go quickly. I know research is never that much fun to hear about, but so this is one of our patients. He was a 52-year-old man who was 6 months post a stroke. He did a total of 49 sessions in 64 days. The average minutes per session was 34 minutes per session, which I said we usually recommend doing 1 session a day, which usually takes about 30 minutes, give or take. It estimated that he did 250 repetitions for every 30-minute session. So total within those days, he did 13,875 repetitions. And after doing that, he reported improvement in smoothness of movement, hand function, grasp and release with reach, and opening and closing doors, grabbing items out of a cupboard. So he really did see a lot of progress within 6 months of using within 49 days of using our product. So I will say a lot of people ask, how long after starting to use our product will they see improvement? And it's different for everybody. There's no black or white answer, but I would say at least if you give it about 2 to 4 weeks to really start seeing improvement, because it's kind of like anything else where doing the neuroplasticity and doing all these movements, it's not going to change overnight. So some people think, okay, I did it for a week and I'm not really seeing improvements. Sometimes it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to really start feeling improvements. And like I said, everybody is going to be different. And I don't know if Polly, I don't know how long it took you to start seeing improvements. That everybody is a little bit different, but you should start seeing improvements if you are doing it and following our recommendations of doing it every day for at least 30 minutes, at least 5 times a week.
Well, Becky, last night was my first time using it since the surgery. So I don't know if I have any improvement yet.
And that makes sense if it's been the first time since your surgery, but I know a lot of people usually ask me that question.
We have your baseline now, Polly.
There
Right.
you go. And before, when I first got it, it was 2017. And I haven't really been able to use the smart glove because of the spasticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that is something that is very limiting. Spasticity, it makes it very difficult to be successful at many of the games.
Yes, I will say that.
And
too.
that's why I went to the smart board, which is more for, you know, the bigger muscle groups and the shoulder and the elbow. And I was much more successful with that. And my surgeon and everybody who I was seeing, they were all very impressed with my shoulder range of motion and my elbow range of motion. And that is partly to do with using the smart board. That's a lot of movement and helps with the fluid movement of those joints.
And I will say, if you do end up purchasing one of our products, we do have a trial period for 2 weeks where you would get our product. And when you first get the product, we would set up a consultation over Zoom with me. And I would basically help you set it up, show you how to use it. And I would also tell you if you seem like a good candidate. So if I have you put it on and I'm noticing that the spasticity is way too much and I don't think you're going to be successful, I am not in sales. I don't get any money if you keep our products. So I usually give you guys a very honest answer and I'll say, you know what, this might not be the best product for you right now. It might be a good idea if we maybe return it or start the smart board, or maybe come back to this if you're getting back within in a couple months, or if there's things that I think is going to help you be more successful. So when you do purchase our products, you always will have a session with an OT, and you could always do more than one, but we at least recommend doing one session so that we can make sure you're using it correctly, make sure you're a good fit for it. And like I said, you do get a 2-week trial with it. And if you find that it's not for you, you send it back and you get all your money back. So it's not like you buy it without seeing it and have to stick with that decision. You do have 2 weeks to try it out and see if you think it'd be a good fit for you.
And I did buy each of them with installments, and they were very reasonable, and it was a long time, but I kept the product and I was using the product. And that was something that helped me think about, oh, you know, I'm paying for this. I better go use it and get my money out of it.
That's true too. It's motivating when you know you're paying for it.
But now I've finished the payments because I got my smart glove first in 2017. So I've had it a while. And I got the smart board in 2019. And now they're mine. And I can use it for therapy, rehab, whenever I want. They're in my home. I get the benefit of having basically a therapist sitting in my dining room, and it's just up to me to take advantage of it.
Yes. And I will say, somebody like Polly, if you've had it for a while, whenever we do come out with new games, you automatically get those games sent to your computer. We'll do an update and you get it. So just because you bought it in 2017 doesn't mean that she stops getting any of our new games that come out. We try to release a few games every year. So Polly should have the same amount of games that somebody would have if they just bought it right now. So that's another thing too, is as we do updates, your product will always be updated along the way. So it doesn't get outdated per se if you bought it in 2017 and now it's 2022. So all of the new games will keep automatically updating to her.
And there's a very simple page in the menu, a very simple menu designed to be used with the touch screen, or I have a mouse hooked up, but it shows you if you're up to date, all the games, if anything does need to be updated. Just a very simple page off to the side. And so it's very easy to use and very intuitive once you get into it. You know, like any new thing, it takes a while. But Ralph, something else, you were talking about range of motion. Before you start each game, it not only tells you, you know, to set the range of motion, it shows you for the smart glove how to position your hand, whether you're doing extension, inflection, gravity eliminated, or if you're doing it this way, so against gravity. So it tells you the right way to move your hand and helps make sure that you are doing these motions in the right way to get the most benefit.
Yes, and one other thing I will say too is at the end of each session, you can look at the report to see how you did, and it will show you how much range of motion. And we report it in two different ways. You can either look at it in degrees, and that's how us as therapists measure it, or you could look at it as percent, because we know a lot of people don't know you should have 90 degrees. If you're not a therapist, you wouldn't know what the average is. So we also put it in percentages. So it would say, okay, you have 30% of range of motion with wrist flexion and extension. And you can always look at your results after. You don't have to, but if you want to, it's there, and you can always compare and contrast how you've done previously. So those will also always be there. The other thing too is when you're doing a session, we have something called, well, something that the computer will create a session for you, and it will pick the games that they think are best for you. Or you can create your own session where you pick the games you play. So if you have a day that you really wanted to work on your finger flexion and extension, you can pick all finger games and work on that. Or you can really just pick the games that you like. And I don't always recommend doing that in the beginning because you haven't played all the games. We do have 40 something games, but once you've kind of played for a while and you know what works best for you, you can create your own sessions where you pick the games that you play.
And right now I'm creating my own because I don't have enough finger flexion and extension to register for the game right now. So I need to work on that a little bit more in therapy, get a little bit more range of motion, active range of motion, and then I can play the games. But right now I'm going to focus on the wrist.
There you go. So it's ways to really make it so that it's yours and you can figure out what games you want to work on too.
And then every 10 to 20 sessions, there is an evaluation session that pops up in the computer, and that goes and it measures the different range of motion, and so you can see changes over time.
Right.
I was asking because I'm a big believer in feedback. I think it's motivating. I think, you know, we try and tell people to measure their progress, take pictures, take video, write down a list of how many you can do, because you tend to, you know, you can't watch your hair go gray. You know, you can't watch yourself get better because it occurs over time. So if you write it down, or you have a device that's constantly giving you feedback, then you know you're improving. Yeah, you might have a bad day, but you know you can see that. I compare it to the stock market. You can see the overall curve instead of the ups and downs. So. And I think
these products do give you that information. You can get minutes played. You can get the range of motion. You can get the number of sessions completed. Let's see what else is there. Oh, stars. You get a certain number of stars. So each mission, each game you play, you can get up to 3 stars. So if you do a session of 8 games, you have a maximum of 24 stars. But any of those games, like I said, the little dune buggy one, that is one of my favorites, like Frogger moving from lane to lane on the highway. I will play that one 2 or 3 times just because I enjoy it. So I get stars every time I play it. more repetitions. And then let's see what else. There are more. So any numbers you want, let's see. Number of stars, candy you get for playing the community games, your score, you get a rank. So and then your range of motion, there are all these numbers.
Yeah, it's a way to really see how you're doing.
Well, if it's measuring everything and keeping track of everything, it's just a matter of how they write the software and the AI, and I assume that gets worked on along with some games and updated as a part of the updates. Because if you have a tablet, you can change the software and make improvements, add games. So
Right. And we
But
try to add a
I'm
couple
here.
games every year.
So here
I
you
make
can see for your evaluation result, your finger flexion extension, and this is from before, since I don't have active finger flexion extension, tells me a percentage of range of motion, coordination, which like the dune buggy game, how I'm reacting to things, and timing. So you can see there are all sorts of metrics. And each one has a see more, which gives you even more information about that item. So here's range of motion, and it tells you over time how you're doing. So you can see that mine went from at the beginning down there under 20% to when the spasticity got to be too much to almost 50%. So you can see, it's like anything else in stroke recovery. It's more a roller coaster than a straight line, but you can draw a straight line through from the beginning to the end and see that upward trajectory.
yeah,
Could I
that's what
say
I do with
something
the
here?
stock market.
Well, could I say something?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, this is a bit out of naivete because I don't have one of those gloves and I have never had a Botox injection. However, Polly mentioned that spasticity was a big problem at first, and it seems to me like the glove might be something very useful to use after a Botox injection where you have more flexibility in your hand or your arm. And during that month or two window, when the Botox is having an effect, you could use the glove to regain use of that hand so when the Botox wears off, you're better off than before you had the Botox injection.
Yes, that is definitely true. The Botox will definitely help if you're using this a lot right after, because yeah, like you said, it's going to loosen everything up. You're going to start getting more movement back, and it will play a good role. And I always tell people that if you find that there's a certain time of day that your tone and spasticity is better, I always recommend, like sometimes people wake up and their tone is a lot less in the morning, or maybe it's in the evenings where it's a lot less tone and less spasticity. I always say to try to use the glove in those hours to help you, like what you're saying, that it will help the recovery process if you're using it when the tone is at its best.
And Bruce, I did have botulinum toxin injections all through the time period I was using the smart glove, and that probably accounts for some of the roller coaster in there, as the tightness after you get the injection and the tightness is decreasing, so you're increasing your range of motion, and then as they wear off, it tightens up again and you have less range of motion.
Yes.
Yeah,
but independent of that, you can see the upward trajectory, not fast. And I had my physician has said I have the most severe spasticity he has seen.
I would
So
agree with him.
don't take me as a normal example. And that's why I had the spasticity surgery 3 weeks ago.
I understand. And as I understand the surgery, I know you posted on that in the spasticity group, and the strength of contraction of a muscle is dependent upon the number of motor units that are activated. And a motor unit is a lower motor neuron in your spinal cord and its associated extrafusal muscle fibers in the muscle. For your hand, for example, a single motor neuron in your spinal cord may be connected to 10 extrafusal muscle fibers in your fingers. Whereas in your back, let's say, a single lower motor neuron may be connected to 200 extrafusal muscle fibers. So you get more delicate work in your fingers because the motor unit ratio is lower. But the point is, in the surgery, as I understand it, if you sever a lower motor neuron's axon, then you are eliminating the ability of those extrafusal muscle fibers that it innervates to contract. And you're thereby eliminating the overall strength of the muscular contraction that's possible in that muscle. So the spasticity will be reduced because some of those extrafusal muscle fibers can no longer contract because they no longer get an innervation from the lower motor neuron. I'll be quiet.
No, thank you for that explanation. Yeah, and another thing that I do tell a lot of people is to try to put some heavy weight through the hand to help reduce that spasticity as well before you use the glove. Like if you take your hand and push down on a table or stretch it a little bit before using the glove also sometimes helps too.
There's been some thought that exercise prior to either PT or OT helps with BDNF and neuroplasticity.
Yes.
So yes, you agree with that. Okay, that's about.
I've heard that as well. Yeah, and I think that it does help. I think it can help as well.
I think it was Shannon Cobb, a physical therapist, that first mentioned that, and you're about the fourth or fifth person. You know, before I go repeating stuff, I like to hear a number of like OTs, neuroscientists like Dr. Hetzler. He hadn't weighed in on that particular one. But, you know, it's good before you go passing out information that you hear it from 3 or 4, you know, professionals who go, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. One thing I'd like to do is find somebody who's an expert on BDNF and talk about exercise before therapy. What else can you do? Intermittent fasting. There's various things that you can do to help BDNF production. And as Dr. Hetzler says, it's miracle growth of the brain.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
and another thing, I don't know if any of you have tried mirror therapy, but I know our product isn't exactly mirror therapy, but it's similar because you're seeing a hand on the screen doing the motion that you're doing with your own hand. So it can also help sometimes with helping your brain to see that full motion, even though you're only doing a little bit, kind of what Polly showed you, even though she only had a tiny bit, you're watching that hand go all the way up and all the way down. So it's not technically mirror therapy, but it is similar. And I think it does help the brain with seeing those motions as well as you doing it.
Okay, I got a question, interesting question. You may or may not have the answer. So I assume you're talking about like mirror box therapy,
Yes,
where
mirror
you're
box
trying to
therapy.
cool one side of the brain by, what about bilateral? They sometimes refer to bilateral therapy as mirror therapy because you're mirroring each side. Is there anything? I found bilateral therapy to be real interesting. It's the way I did it originally, to roll my fingers. I would do kept trying to get my affected hand to do it, and it was firing all crazy. So I said, well, what does a good hand do? And I went, oh, okay. What happens if I do both? Oh, wow, it did it better.
And
So
sometimes
I
I do
would
find that telling. Yeah, no,
pattern a few times, then do it till it fell apart, pattern again. Would this be a strategy you could use with the smart glove
yes.
on top of the?
Yeah, I have done that actually with a few clients. I have had them use both hands at the same time, and that has helped them a lot to use that stronger hand to help guide the other one a little bit. So I do agree, and it depends on the person. Like I said, everybody's different, but I have had clients that have found that very helpful while they're using the smart glove.
I do all the time.
Yeah.
you will watch me playing, and I'm playing with one hand and the other hand is like this, like this. I do think it does
Very
help.
helpful, I think. Yeah.
But yeah, I found it real helpful in my recovery and with some of the people I help and coach. So, and then you got ipsilateral patterning too, but that I don't know enough about that to really talk about it. But you know, the same side of your brain sends signals to the same side, about 15 to 20%, I believe. Isn't that right? About right, Dr. Hetzler? Of the signals go to the same side of the brain?
The vast majority go to the contralateral side, but
Right.
yes, about 15% or so go
15, yeah, I've heard
ipsilateral.
15, 20.
Mhm.
So, anyway, it's interesting. You know, we have there's so much more science that can be discovered about stroke recovery. I think we're in an exciting period in that technology is in the last 10 years is just, you know, taken off like a rocket. And, you know, I'm seeing things. I had my stroke 15 years ago. You couldn't find a video on stroke recovery on YouTube. I had a YouTube channel. I could not find a single video on stroke recovery. Bob and Brad hadn't started yet. Tara Tobias hadn't, and now look, we've got, you know, companies like Neofect, and they're using robotics. I know somebody, it's experimental, but I know somebody doing a study with a soft, flexible exoskeleton with E-stem built in and robotics. That, you know, there's going to be a lot of interesting things that go on, and I'm a big believer that science and technology are going to help us out some. There may be there's no magic bullet, but I think that by studying the way the brain works and using technology to play into neuroplasticity and stuff, we can be more focused. And that's been my whole thing all along, would be the more you know about recovery, the more focused you are in doing the right types of exercises and such, the more likely you are to make progress, as opposed to being kind of haphazard about it. So that's kind of the point of what we do here on Tuesdays, trying to learn more about recovery and the science behind it. So I think I was to say it's exciting times for newly minted stroke survivors, but it'd be really exciting if we could somehow stop minting stroke survivors, 800,000 a year. We haven't seen any real decrease in the numbers, and unfortunately, it seems to be happening to younger and younger people. While we maintain the 800,000, I think the average age has been creeping down. I know it has in South Carolina. We have over 70% of all strokes are people under 65, and 15 years ago it was 20.
Oh, wow.
20 to 70 in 15 years.
Number.
Yeah. So, anybody got any more questions? I don't know
Yeah, I have a comment, or maybe it's a question, but Becky, I don't really believe this is your field of expertise, but how come so many OTs and, well, just stroke survivors and stroke products and everything, it's all geared towards spasticity and decreasing that, but like all my I had a stroke like 27 years ago, but like all I'm left over with it is an ataxic arm that doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, so I would say ours is not really
Is
focused
that,
on.
yeah, well, I understand that's not your focus. So, I mean, there aren't really any products out there that deal with that, are there?
So you're saying that you have no movement in your arm? Is that what you said? Sorry.
No, I have full range of motion in my arm. I just can't control it. It does what it shakes when it wants. And well, I mean, 27 years of it shaking, I understand what that pattern is, I think, but it's kind of random. And I don't know, besides like duct taping my arm to my side, I don't really have an answer for that, and I don't think anyone really does.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Taxi is
definitely,
tough.
what was that?
I would say a taxi is really tough. A
Yeah.
neurologist will tell you you cannot overcome it. I work
Well,
with somebody,
there's got to be a way to overcome
I worked with
it.
somebody who had it really bad in her arms and core, and we built up her core and trunk and neck strength, and it decreased
Yeah, I
significantly.
have it in my core. It like starts around like sometimes I can, if I'm like sitting there really paying attention, it like starts, I don't know, like a liver quiver shiver, and I can then feel it radiate out to my arm, and it's really
Not funny,
weird.
sorry.
But it's well, it is funny, but it isn't funny, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I was laughing at your description, not what you go through.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, so I mean, ataxia, it is just a hard thing. And not to say that we don't want to focus on it, because I think that we do. And I think that our products will focus on it as well. Kind of what Ralph was just saying, that it's important to focus on the strengthening and the movements. And just kind of a lot of times doing the strengthening will help decrease it a little bit. So like sometimes even using our products, but using a weight as well. Sometimes that helps the strengthening too. So sometimes I'll tell people to hold like a 2-pound weight in their hand, and that might help decrease a little that the toxic movement that you have when you're doing the exercise. I don't know if that normally helps you, but sometimes that weight will help decrease it a little bit, and doing some weight training along with our products can help as well. But I can't say why.
I use door stops under the edge of my smart board so it's tilted up. So I'm working more against gravity for the same thing, to strengthen the arm and to kind of reduce some of the spastic, as you're moving, and it just helps to strengthen.
Well, and one of the well-known ways to reduce it in your hand is they make weighted gloves. They don't go on your fingers. They go on the right here on the back of your hand is where the weight is.
Yeah, I started with that, but like back in the day when I was recovering, there wasn't all this technology.
Oh no! I
Yeah, this
know.
is all within the last couple of years, I would say.
Yeah, and I was probably the only kid that had ever had a stroke, and well, I can't say that, but I can't imagine it's very common.
Right. It's definitely becoming a more common, which is unfortunate.
Well,
to see.
now it is,
More
yeah,
common
but
with younger people.
this is back in
He
the
was
late 90s.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 97, so
Okay.
yeah, it's come a long way since then, but
I did want to share my goal with you.
yes,
There it is. So my goal with the Neofect Smart Glove is to use a sewing machine. So my previous goal, and you can set a kind of a universal goal in the program. My previous goal was gardening. And when I figured out the adaptations I needed, now I have a beautiful jungle out on my front porch. So my new goal is use a sewing machine. And I've tried the sewing machine and I haven't quite gotten there yet. Got to try the tape method, see if that works. But it gives you something to focus on, something to think about. What do I want to achieve from this rehabilitation?
Well, this is a good example of one of those things that people want to get back to. Actually, after one of these meetings, Winnie and Carly and I were sitting around. They both sew, and I sew. I used to have a hippie leather shop. I've actually raised some money recently to buy 2 sewing. We bought, Winnie and Carly both contributed. We bought a couple sewing machines for somebody in Africa and changed their life. And shortly after that, we formed a sewing after stroke group, and I figured out that it's really hard to hold the fabric with one hand, but I figured out how you could drop the foot down and change the needle by threading it first and then pulling up on the thread and taping it, and then it's closer because you have to put it up into thing and then tighten the screw one-handed. Winnie took some masking tape and taped the two pieces of fabric together so she didn't have to hold them and could sew them one-handed. So between getting better and figuring out adaptions, you know, when people come together in that kind of a community, and it's pretty small right now, about 6 people are only in the group. We need to get some more posts and some more things going. But, you know, that's a good example of things that people want to get back to. And if you, you're more likely to get back to doing what you want to do if you set goals and try and work towards them, I believe. You know, that's the way I did it. I also see that people who are trained for anything athletically or whatever understand that goals are out there. They aren't achieved in a week. Like you said, you're not going to see progress with the smart glove in a week. It takes some time, and they understand that better because they've worked 6 months to shave 5 seconds off their 5K time, you know. So they understand that there's not instant gratification. A lot of people have a stroke and don't have that kind of experience, and you know, they run into trouble because they keep expecting that they're going to see results, you know, right away, and that's just not the way it works. You know, you mentioned, what did that guy do, 17,000 repetitions in 49 days? Yeah, you go to PT or OT, they'll tell you, oh, I hear people say 1,000, but they told me 10,000. And I think it starts at 10,000. It's kind of like aerobics, starts at 20 minutes. Everybody does 20 minutes of aerobics and then stops right when they reach aerobic capacity. If you want to do 20 minutes of aerobics, then you exercise for 40 minutes. You know, it takes 20 minutes to get aerobics. So I think it takes more than 10,000. I know I did more. I know I did way more than 10,000 the first year. I did 3 hours, 3 50-minute sessions a day with my hand, 7 days a week for 15 months.
That's great. And that's probably
Well,
Not everybody can do that, though. I mean,
my occupational, I think it was my occupational therapist, told me almost 30 years ago, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, and that, I find that to be true. So I still do all the simple exercises that need to be done to keep everything moving. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
No.
So.
And I'm a big believer in that saying as well, because I really think you watch people, if they stop doing the exercises and you stop trying to improve it, you do start to lose it and your muscles start to atrophy. And it's so important to keep using it. And the more that you keep using it, the better it's going to get. I'm a true believer, if you don't use it, you lose it saying. And for anybody, if you're a marathon runner and you stop running for a month or two, you're going to lose that time. You're not going to be that fast runner. It's for everybody, not just the stroke survivor or anybody like that. It's for anything in life. The minute that you stop doing it,
yes,
you
that is
for the hand or something that's called learned non-use. So basically, if you don't use the affected hand, if you rely on the good hand, your brain forgets how to use the affected hand. And you do literally lose it because your brain completely forgets. Your brain likes to be challenged. And if you're not challenging it with your affected hand, your brain assigns those neurons to something else.
Yeah, if I never used my affected hand, it would probably go into lobster claw movement.
right,
But I noticed it coming close to that, and I'm like, oh, good, all right. And well, you know, time to go do some stuff. I have to go like bake some things, go do dishes. Like for the last couple months, I've been doing the dishes because I don't know. I was sitting here using my computer a few months ago, and I kind of felt like my hand was just like lobster clawing or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, yeah, don't like that. So yeah, I have to get back on it. I can't sit around too long.
Well, I need to get going, but I think one of the first things that Becky said is the most important thing to know about the Neofect products. You do have to have your own motion. And if someone doesn't have hand motion, because usually things return proximally to distally. So I had to go from the smart glove working on the hand to the smart board using the shoulder and elbow, where I was able to use it much more effectively because I had better control of the muscles in the shoulder and the elbow. So you do need your own motion, but you don't need much. You just need a little bit.
Yes, that is correct. That's my biggest thing that I like to tell people, because some people get this product thinking it's robotic, but it's not robotic in any way at all. It's really using your own movement to regain that strength through neuroplasticity.
Was
So
it like attached like with Bluetooth or something? Is it like a Bluetooth thing, or is it
It's
plugged
Bluetooth.
in, or?
Yep, it's all Bluetooth. So like I said, when you purchase the glove, we send you a tablet, and that comes with it. And the tablet you can use as a regular tablet too. That tablet's yours to keep. So you can use it for the games, but it's also a regular Android tablet. So people use it for all different other things as well.
Cool. All right. Well, anybody got anything else? Otherwise, we'll let Becky go and close this out.
Actually, this is kind of unrelated and weird, but that thing that that piece that you Becky, that you stood up and went to get, I believe you called it a board or something. It looked like
For
it
the
had a
smart
big
board?
tall, yeah, the big tall joystick on the top or whatever.
Yep.
Is that thing work like a joystick, that thing on the top, but it's like grip sensitive?
So it doesn't really work as a joystick. It helps control on the board. I don't know if you saw when Polly showed her board, but this is how you control the game. So
Oh, I see. So
yeah,
you
so
slide
I don't
that
have it
around.
attached to the board right now because I don't have the board in this room
All
with me.
right.
It's
got it.
basically a peg you grip.
Yeah, it's something
Yeah,
that you
that
grip.
makes sense.
So
It just
instead of the
gets a
glove
big, so
controlling.
you can use massive, like bigger muscle movements instead of the punch.
Exactly.
I got you. All right.
All right.
Because anyhow, where I was going with my weird comment is I saw this thing online the other day. It's for a Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's like a flight joystick, but it was shaped just like that, but it like just uses like your, I don't know, it like senses your muscle, your strength or whatever. Like, so you don't even have to really turn it. You just kind of think about turning it, and the plane turns and does
Oh,
all
that's
that,
cool.
yaws and.
This one, unfortunately, you do need to have some motion. It doesn't go what you're thinking, but that would be really cool if we could.
I get, but yeah. Like I said, had nothing to do with it, but.
No, that sounds interesting.
All right. Well, want to thank you, Becky, for taking the time with us. We really appreciate it. And I'll get with you about any kind of information you want me to put underneath the video in terms of contact information, links and stuff. I mean, I know some of the obvious stuff, so I'll send you an email with like what I think, and you can add anything you want to it. And I speak for everybody when I say we really appreciate you coming here and sharing your knowledge with us. So
thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Polly, for putting this together. And thank you,
yes,
Ralph.
thank you again,
I appreciate
Polly.
everybody. And please reach out if you have any other questions or concerns. I'm always around. So I'll send Ralph my information. If anybody wants to call or email, I can definitely answer any questions.
All right. Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks again, Becky. Thanks again, Polly. And we'll see everybody next time, next week.